Hey there, it's Austin Regneri. I wanted to run through a couple design concepts that I'm considering as a way to further enhance our command palette, which has become an integration between the global search functionality as well as a few commands that help scope what users might be trying to find or look for. So whether you're searching or if you're using a command to do that, we're going to try and figure out some ways to improve the interaction. I wanted just to highlight a few of the things that I'm suggesting to get some feedback. So yeah, most of this issue is focused more or less on the visuals, not trying to introduce any new functionality necessarily, just building upon what we already have to help set the foundation for what is coming down the road. So I've highlighted it numerous states across all of these. So I'll jump into those in the designs. First, the landing of the global search box itself. You'd be presented with different contexts inside GitLab. I will add an asterisk here and say that the UI copy is pending review from Suzanne. Like, we're going to work through some of these ideas, but conceptually just think more of the experience of using your keyboard or moving around and trying to select the things you're looking for. The first big notable change is having this static footer at the bottom of the opening of the command palette. This would essentially have rotating tips, which could help users better identify and learn progressively over time what they can do with it instead of trying to jam it all in the placeholder text, which is what we're doing today, as well as giving them an option to find a cohesive place to find all those options. So I thought this would be a useful anchoring point to link those together. The downside is like they're kind of far apart, so perhaps this isn't the best solution, but I'd be curious if others have another idea that might be more useful than this. So kind of moving into the experience itself, if we're considering just the generic before and after here to try and help differentiate these two different states. So the left side being what is today, the right side being where we're trying to get to in the next milestone or two. You can see that before you just had simple filters that find things within a project for you. On the right hand side, we have a few options to change your context in GitLab, as well as change to your frequently visited projects. And what you can't see are the groups below that, and what you can't see below that would be the filter options that were already there, which I would love to further integrate that into command for issues later, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So let's start highlighting some differences here. So right now in the current experience, let's say start typing your global search. You're given a few options for scopes for global search. There are a few things that currently frustrate me at the moment because the scope of being inside that project is the search box. I can't right click and search in a new tab or window, which is what I kind of do often when I'm in an issue or somewhere and trying to go to something else. So trying to improve that by differentiating it. So instead of just saying like what you're searching and then the scope on the right, specify that we're searching for this in one of these contexts to try and make that a little bit more specific, as well as opting for the thing that the user might be finding first, as opposed to defaulting to the search option. So pulling in the first result rather than the search option. So kind of flipping that order, I think would better anticipate what users hope to have their focus on immediately. This would be like the loading state. Right now we just throw a generic spinner in there. I think moving the spinner to where the magnifying glass would be less disruptive visually, as well as indicating like when you need to type more characters, because right now if you type a single character, it's just possibly going to sit there and spin. So trying to give some more assistance to when it's needed. So let's say you've put in a large amount of text, you get nothing back. You're not really told there aren't any results, you're just given a few options to search. So trying to suggest users say no results found, you can edit your search, try again, or you can just go ahead and jump right into the search of that scope. Additionally, like what happens when it's loading for 3 or more characters, like the difference between this and that one would be like this one would be like what's happened after the results are found. This would be while it's searching. So you could still, while it's loading, now go ahead and search globally. I don't want to wait for it, or just let it finish out. Either way, like you can kind of tell on the left here, there's no real visual indicator that something is happening either way. So in one instance it's still loading, one instance it's not, but you don't really know that. Continuing on, when you don't have the connections, let's say you are all of a sudden go offline or you lose your internet, the error is coming at the end, so moving that above I think would be useful for announcing the alert, as well as, again, trying to move those search options into the modal itself. Now, moving into the commands. So the first one, which we've generically named command prior, this was more of a way to search for pages or perform an action in GitLab. So I've helped kind of just rename this a little bit to make that more clear. And I've tried to use icons. I think this is an appropriate time for them because we're using the word new a lot and sometimes the same thing in multiple places. I do feel like the icons help give a visual anchoring point to understand quickly like what you're looking for, as opposed to having to read the entire sentence because it is rather text heavy. But again, trying to indicate like where you're going to do this instead of just saying in this project, using some of the leading text here to say like you're going to create in Shell UI or wherever that project name is, just to help make it more obvious that you're doing something in a specific location if you can't see the context behind it. For this loading state, it seemed instantaneous, so I'm guessing our indexing is already done once the page has loaded, so it didn't seem like this is necessary, but if it is, then using some placeholder text below it while the page, or while the pages are being searched or actions are being searched. And then once it's completed, defaulting to the first item in the list, so you can quickly just jump to it without having to tab down. And again, like I think our pajama guidelines say no results found, but also if that's the case, edit your search and try again. Because it's a page or an action, we can't really global search that. So there would be no search functionality in this case, but there would be possibly for others. Okay, so now moving on to the user command. Again, trying to like break apart the placeholder because like once you start typing in there, it's gonna change. So moving that type 3 or more characters below to make it more obvious and what you're trying to do. You're trying to search for users. So once you have done that, you get your loading state, which right now it's just a spinner again. And again, let's move that spinner up here, but let's also offer the option to search for a user in all of GitLab. So we could technically do that. Like you could search for users in all of GitLab. So I think we should always default. If there's a way to help the users get to global search better to the scope that they need, then that might be a useful way to intercept them. It was interesting. I left off the at here, but yeah, same deal as before with our regular search, that there should be a way to get to search, but also a way to directly go to the users that are found. Again, a no results list. This one might be okay to edit your search and try again, but again, let's try and give them a way to get to global search if they want to look more broadly. Now let's move on to the file search. Right now we're using a / to do files. I'm suggesting to change that to tilde because we use a / for quick actions, and our hope is to eventually bring in quick actions. But I don't know if that's problematic or not. I think a beneficial thing about the / right now is if you're copying a file path, you might accidentally copy the / in and of itself, which would then mean probably less, it'd be more fault tolerant. But I don't know if it's best to use something that we already use, that we've created a learned behavior for elsewhere, especially if we're going to bring quick actions in as a command. So if you feel strongly about the option there, let me know. But another thing I'd love to differentiate is in the repository itself, when we have the files list, we use the representative icon for the file type. So instead of just showing a generic GitLab icon like we do on the left, using like the markdown icon or the GitLab logo if it's a CI file or something like that. And then there are cases where like you're searching and there's a project with files and a project with none. So I think it's important to differentiate, like, hey, you're in a there's no repositories here. So there's not any indication right now if you're searching in a project without a repository. So better indicating those states. Again, this felt instantaneous. I don't know if this is even necessary, but if it is, loading state. And then showing what happens when you're not in the scope of a project. So if you're somewhere else and you're not an administrator, you type / you just get an empty box. So let's say you're on your work or explore or on profile or something, giving some indication that you're trying to search for project files. It's like a protected character, and then suggesting the user what to do next, like navigate to a project to search for files. Right now, if you were an administrator though, you get the jump to admin area, which again, if we actually switch this over to the tilde, then we don't run into that scenario. Now let's say we're finding those files. I think it would be useful to also be able to give them the option to search for related code, which is different than searching for the file name. So we're searching for file name, but we're not necessarily searching for contents. But let's just say someone dumped in their file contents. We could potentially port them over into the global search experience within that project. And again, let's say it's just a really long text, nothing was back. The default search option could put them into the code search for that project. All right, let's move on to projects. This one's kind of similar to the user situation. So giving better placeholder breakdown, split between two areas, loading state. And this is one thing that we really need to be better about specifying. Right now, we currently just say projects, but that's not an accurate representation of what we're searching. We're actually searching only projects that someone is a member of. So if you search up Inkscape, which I'm not a member of, I will not be able to find it, but I could if I searched for it in all of GitLab. And I think that's a very specific thing that we got to better differentiate here, because it's confusing users why sometimes it appears, sometimes it doesn't. This might be a performance problem. That might be why it's built this way, but unless we are truly searching all projects, then we should specify that this is only projects they're a member of and they can find it elsewhere. Additionally, I think there are some redundant pieces we can remove. For some reason, the text of the project name will be duplicated if there's not a subgroup. I don't know why, but I've found that if it's, let's say, like pajamas where there's a subgroup, it'll say group subgroup as the path. But if it's just group project, then it specifies it twice, essentially by telling you the project name twice, which feels redundant to me. And again, just trying to use some more specific tying to the shortcut button when that's where your focus would be. If you were to hit the return key, it would go to a project. Again, another no results list, trying to then allow users to search for all results if they want to, just in case, like in my case, if I put an Inkscape here, I would get a no results found. But there would be hope if I searched in all of GitLab, because I would be able to find one there. And that brings me to the end of the different states that I was able to mock up. Let me know if one stands out to you. Feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to sync up on it.